All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Ethan Collier, and I'll chair today's meeting of the Regional Chattanooga Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. Just a couple things to go over before we get started. There have been some slides that have been playing overhead, but maybe you didn't see them. Just in regards to procedures for today's meeting, the Planning Commission has gotten this packet in the mail about a week ago and has had the opportunity to review it. And as I go through the agenda, if you're here, please follow along closely on the agenda to make sure that you know where we're at. But in each case, I'll read off the agenda item, and I'm going to ask if there's any opposition present. Sometimes that's confusing for people because they may not necessarily think they're opposed to the case, but they have a question or a concern or something like that. And if that's the case, if you're here and you're not the applicant and you want to speak, please make sure you raise your hand when I ask if there's any opposition, so that way I know you're here. Because in some cases, if there's no opposition and we have a staff recommendation to approve, we'll just go ahead and take action on it. We won't necessarily hear from the staff. So at times, our meeting can move really quick, and other times it feels like it's moving really slow. So just follow along closely. In each case, I'll ask if there's any opposition present. If there is, you'll have an opportunity to speak. The applicant will start out. They'll come up to the mic here. There's a red light that will be on, and we'll be able to hear you. State your name and address and the reason for your request. You'll have 7 minutes total if you're the applicant. After the time that the applicant's finished, the opposition will come up, and I ask that if there's multiple people that want to speak in opposition, that they line up against the wall over here on the right side or my left. And the total allotted time for opposition is 9 minutes. So I do ask that people pay attention to what's being said in front of them so that they're not repeating themselves. And so we'll hear from opposition for 9 minutes. From time to time, I have to cut people off, and that's not me being rude. I don't think I know. I probably only know 3 people out there. So if I cut you off, it's not because there's anything against you. It's just because there's a line of people behind you that also have shown up today and wish to speak. And then the applicant will be able to come back up to the mic and respond to the comments that they've heard from opposition for 2 minutes. All the conversation that happens today will be between the Planning Commission members and the person at the podium. There's no conversation between the person at the podium and the audience or between the person at the podium and staff. So just make sure if you do have any questions or you have any comments, you direct those to the Planning Commission, and we'll do the same. With that being said, I think that covers all the agenda items. Are there any cases that have been withdrawn that I need to let people know about?
I do believe, well, actually, nothing official yet. Some of these have, I've heard they want to withdraw.
Okay.
But I don't know if they're.
We'll wait till we get to them. Okay. Next on our agenda is recognition of public service, and it's to our current executive director, John Bridger. John knew it was on the agenda, so he's not too terribly surprised by it. And I do have this that I'd like to read onto the record. But before I do, I'll say that I've had the opportunity to work. I feel like at times I work for John. I was about to say for John. I've had the opportunity to work with John for 8 years in this role. And in doing what I do as a developer, I also have the opportunity to work with other people that have similar positions as John all over city government. And I can tell you that John is one of the greatest public servants that I've ever run across in any interaction that I've ever had with anybody from the city. He's a great manager. He's a great leader. He's a great listener. There's so many incredibly positive attributes. After I get done reading this, I'd love to hear the ones that I didn't just list, but I know that anybody who's ever interacted with John, and I'm sure this could be said by his staff as well as the mayor's office that he's worked for, he's the very kind of person that we want to be in our city and county government, and it's a serious loss to lose him. I hate it. I'm going to miss him. I've sat next to him for the last 8 years, and he's helped me out many a day. And So he'll be missed. He's going to stay in Chattanooga, though, so that's good. But I want to read this resolution on the record. Whereas John Berger has served as Executive Director of the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Agency for the past 11 years, and whereas prior to that, John also served as an Associate Planner, Manager of the Design Center, and Comprehensive Planning Director in his first period of service at the planning agency from 1991 to 2002. And whereas John will leave the RPA after 22 years of outstanding service to the city of Chattanooga and Hamilton County. And whereas John has distinguished himself with his extensive knowledge, professionalism, and expertise developed during his career that has been invaluable to the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Agency and the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. And whereas throughout his many years of dedicated service, John has served the people of the city of Chattanooga and Hamilton County with fairness, compassion, dedication, and a willingness to help others. And whereas John's...
he'll treasure that, I know. I've been friends with John since I came here to Chattanooga and have really enjoyed his friendship. He's a very interesting guy, as some of you have gotten to know, but he's has lots of varied interests and talents, and fishing being one. We share that passion of fishing and cooking as well. He's an excellent cook, so I'm really going to miss staff meetings where he brings food. Will be a big miss, but that's right. There's still time for that. But what you all may not realize is that that John has to be the voice of this commission to two legislative bodies, and he has to present all of these cases and answer all of the intricacies of each case on the fly at these legislative bodies. And although I love our elected officials very much, Commissioner and Councilman, it is a lot of work for John to be that voice, and he does it with just an amazing amount of sincerity and knowledge base, and just conversational, as you said, Councilman, and makes that presentation not just understandable to the legislative bodies, but also to the public who are participating in that legislative function. So it helps the public understand what the legislative bodies are voting on. And he is a true pro, and I'm going to miss working with you very much. And both mayors who I've worked with here in Chattanooga both asked me, former Mayor Burke and Mayor Kelly both asked me to express their sincere gratitude and best wishes for your next steps.
Well, thank you, John. All right, well, we're going to jump into the agenda. First item under preliminary plats is case SD 2021-0028, and this is lots 2A, 2B, located at 1935 Southern Street, and this has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? There are none. Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. First item under variances, only item under variances, is SD 2021-0030, and this is a variance from Article 402.1, required access for residential lots located at 8,000 block Rocky Ledge Drive, and this has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? And are you familiar with the conditions? Okay. And do you have any issue with them? Do you wish to address any of them? Okay. We have a motion to approve with conditions, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. And any opposed? Motion carries. All right, first item under old business is case 2021-0062, and this is located at the 2300 block of Jenkins Road and the 7900 block of Holly Hills subdivision. This is in the city of Chattanooga, and it's a special permit for residential plan unit development and has a staff recommendation to deny. Is there any opposition present? Okay. And is the applicant present? All right.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know the applicant answer this. I've heard they wish to withdraw case 62 and 63. I'll let the applicant discuss that.
Is that the case that you wish to withdraw? Can you turn your mic on?
Second.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Can you state your name?
My name is Matt Marsh. I'm here on behalf of Paces Ferry Builders.
Okay. So the applicant has requested to withdraw. We've got a motion. This is in regards to case 2021-0062 first. And that motion to withdraw was properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. And any opposed? Motion carries. And regarding case 2021-0063, is it also your desire to withdraw that case? Okay, the applicant has indicated that it is, and we have a motion, and it was properly seconded to withdraw. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. If you were here and you were here in opposition to that case, and just to let you know, they have both been withdrawn, which means there's no more case. It's not going to go on to City Council. We didn't take any action on it other than to allow the applicant to withdraw. So you don't have to stick around unless you want to. I did see several hands go up.
Mr. Chairman, I think some of the same people in opposition are also here in opposition to case number 6, which is 2021-114 at 2511 Jenkins Road. So I believe the same opposition is here for that as well.
Gotcha. And in regards to case 2021-0014, is the applicant present?
They may be out in the rotunda.
Oh, is it your intent to withdraw that one as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'd like to go ahead and move that up on the agenda.
Motion to withdraw.
Okay, case 2021-0114, located at 2511 Jenkins Road, is an application to rezone from R1 residential zone to C2 convenience commercial zone and has a staff recommendation to deny, and the applicant has requested.
I don't think he's the applicant for this case. Yeah, I think that's a different applicant.
Oh,
Let me go check. Patrick's going to check and see.
is it actually their intent to withdraw this case?
That's
Have you
my
heard that from the applicant?
They're not going to. Okay. Oh, okay.
All right.
Then we'll move on. Sorry I mentioned it. I thought we were.
That's fine. I'd still like to help these people get out of here sooner rather than later if we've got the applicant present.
Patrick's checking out there.
We do have a motion and a second on the floor to withdraw.
I will withdraw that.
Okay, thank you. I did warn you that at times we move fast. Is the applicant present for that case now?
Is the applicant here for case 2021-114 at 2511 Jenkins Road? They're not here. Appears the applicant is not here.
Okay. Well, I'm going to err on the side of not moving that up in the agenda, and we'll just wait and see if the applicant shows up. I would hate to take action on it and then think that we're further up in the agenda. All right. Next case on the agenda is case 2021-00 20-0108, and this is located at 3916 and 3920 Murray Hills Drive. And it's an application to rezone from R1 residential zone to C2 convenience commercial zone. And the staff has recommended to deny the applicant's request and approve another. Is the applicant present? Okay. And you can come on up. And is there any opposition present?
Mr. Chairman, we did receive one email letter in opposition to this case. You should have a spreadsheet in front of you, but I also emailed this one that has those comments.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody here in opposition? All right. So, sir, can you turn that mic on? There should be a. Okay, there you go. It's on.
It's on? Okay.
Yeah. State your name and address for the record.
My name is Wick Spears, 3224 Enclave Bay Drive.
Okay, thank you. Are you familiar with what staff has recommended in regards to this case?
I am.
And does it work for you?
No, not really.
Okay, that's good. I want to hear, if it's not going to work for you, I want to hear the staff presentation first and then give you an opportunity to speak to that. If that's
Sure.
okay. All right. Mr. Schultz.
Sure. This is case 2021-108 at 3916 and 3920 Murray Hills Drive. This is a request rezone from R1 residential zone to C2 convenience commercial zone for self-storage facility. It's about 1.34 acres in size. As you can see on the screen here, it's located just about a block north off of Highway 58. And it's, again, it's 3916 and 3920 Murray Hills Drive. Here's a view of the site from Murray Hills. This is a view looking north across the street from the site, which is a church. This is a view west of the site, which is single-family detached dwellings. Just beyond that tree line is the site itself. And this is a view looking east towards Highway 58. The site is just behind that convenience store. And this is a view south of the site. This is closer towards Highway 153. This property has a split zoning designation, which is R1 and C2. To the north and west is R1, and then to the south is C2. Some zoning history in this area. This parcel, we're seeking the request today, applied to rezone from R1 to C2 in 2003, but the request was withdrawn by the applicant. Then property located at 4301 was rezoned from C1 to C2 in 2006. In essence, back then in 2002, the C1 and C2 zones were very similar to the C1 and C6 zones we had. So those zones were eliminated and rezoned to C2. Again, this is a vacant piece of property. To the north is a church. To the south along along Highway 58 is commercial uses. And to the west is Murray Hills residential subdivision, which is all single-family dwellings. This property is located in Highway 58 community plan, which is adopted in 2002. The plan recommendation for this property is low-density residential and community commercial. Community commercials and any other residential zone other than a full-blown C2. So that's the reason for the denial. One is intensity of encroaching into that residential subdivision. Doesn't comply with the land use plan. So staff recommended to deny the request, approve C2 for the portion with the condition limiting height to 2.5 stories or 35 feet. The applicant does own the adjacent parcel to the south towards Highway 58. That's not part of this request, so they have a much larger area than just these two parcels here. So,
Thank you, Mr. Schultz.
You're welcome.
Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? All right, go ahead.
So I don't know how you said the applicant. If I'm not the owner.
We've done it in the past as well, and I don't know what anybody else up here is really thinking. I'm familiar with the area. I think it probably makes some sense. And that would be a C2 approval with a limited use.
With conditions.
With a limited use, you have a condition of self-storage.
Correct.
I'm offering that.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. Is that something you would consider?
It is. In addition to that, I think there's a 15 20-foot landscape buffer currently, and we would propose to add another, go to 20, add another 5.
So a 20-foot landscape buffer, and then help me with the access point to the neighbor.
So the access point would come off of Murray Hills on the 3920 lot. There would be no access point on this 3916 lot.
And can that be included as a condition to provide, for them to provide access?
There's only one neighbor adjoining property, and we spoke to them, and this is what they were agreeable with these conditions.
Somebody else may have a comment. I'll make a motion when the time's right.
Yeah, as long as both properties is in.
Yeah.
I've got a question, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Martin.
When you say 3920,
So
are you talking about what's right behind that convenience store?
No,
you've got your marker on it right now.
Right there.
It's the one that's split right now.
Commissioner Martin, if you look on your screen, I have it, a little pointer. I don't know if you can see it on your screen or not. It is this one that has a split zoning designation.
But do you own that other lot that's, I guess, that lot right there?
So the total, yes, is the 3 lots.
Well, I guess
The one is currently zoned properly. The one is split, and the other one has about 5%.
I guess my question is this, where Brian has the marker right now, could you make it work by having your entrance there that's closer towards Highway 58? Further away from the house, further away from the church? Closer to
Yes,
what is-
yes. However, there is an easement that runs through that property as well. So
Mr. Chairman, can staff
if that easement could get moved, then yes.
make a comment on the access? That's normally handled through CDOT during their review of the permitting process. They'll sort of dictate during the review where that entrance most likely is more appropriate.
So 3920 doesn't matter until it gets to CDOT.
I'm assuming he's going to combine these parcels into one lot. Then as part of the building permit review, CDOT will review it for appropriate location of that entrance.
So the
So our
bottom line is it's if this gets rezoned, all 3 of those become one, and CDOT will decide where the best place to put the
Correct.
entrance.
But just as a reminder, right now there are 3 existing lots. So in theory, you could have 3 potential curb cuts.
Thank you.
I mean, but Mr. Schultz, just to be clear, we can still condition on which lot that curb cut goes to.
You could. The problem would be if CDOT says, no, it shouldn't go there, you have to come back through this whole process to lift that condition.
Gotcha.
It's just something to think about.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I believe that we could just exclude, I'm looking at this thing here that says Lot 5. I believe that's what the address you're talking about.
I think that's correct.
And the Lot 5, we could exclude Lot 5 from access. And then CDOT can place it anywhere else they want.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you can add that to your motion when you present that.
Can staff also clarify, I believe the applicant mentioned something about a 15-foot landscape buffer. That's actually a 20 under the current landscape regulations. Anywhere that C2 abuts R1, the current landscape requires 20 foot,
Okay.
which is really no need for a condition on that as is part of the code.
All right.
I mean,
Any other-
if that's what would get it done, yes.
All right. Is there any other discussion on this case? Any questions for the applicant? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Sullivan first.
Yes, ladies first.
Thanks. I see the condition of building height limited to 2.5 stories or 35 feet. Is that part when you said that you weren't comfortable with all? Are you?
That I'm comfortable with.
Okay.
It would be a single story.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Councilman Ledford.
On that note, good question, Maura. Would you be okay if we limited it to 1 story?
That would be fine, yes.
Okay, that might get some quell some other concerns. Have you had a chance to talk to Councilman Smith yet about this?
I put in a couple of calls and did not get a response.
Okay. We did talk a little bit about this because I had some concerns about the height and whatnot, and I think Commissioner Farmer's on the right mark here of making something work. If you would reach out to him again, and if you want to help facilitate that, to make sure that that he's aware of the changes that are being made here at Planning Commission, and thank you for the 25-foot buffer on that.
Move to approve the applicant's request with the following conditions: a 25-foot buffer where it adjoins R1, exclude access on Lot 5, condition to one-story buildings, and condition the use to storage only.
We have a motion with conditions, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. And any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next case on the agenda is case 2021-0109, and this is located at 1744 and 1746 Eagle Drive. And it's an application to rezone from R2 residential zone to R1 residential zone and C2 convenience commercial zone. And has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is the applicant present? And is there any opposition present? Okay. We'll hear from staff first, then you'll have the opportunity to speak.
Okay, this is case 2021-109. The request is rezoned from R2 residential zone to R1 residential and C2 convenience commercial zone. Proposed use is a new retail store. That's approximately 1 acre in size. This is located at the corner of Eagle Drive and Hickson Pike, Hickson community. It's located at 1744 and 1746 Eagle Drive. This is a view looking the site from Hickson Pike. This is a view north of the site. The site's just on the left-hand side of the picture. This is looking north on Hickson Pike. This is a view west of the site just beyond in that wooded tree coverage area. And this is a view east of the site looking towards the intersection of Eagle Drive and Hickson Pike. And this is a view south of the site. It's a single-family detached dwelling. This property is zoned R2. Has a little mixture of zones in this area. You have R2 to the north, R1 to the north and west, and to the south is C2 and R2, and then to the east across Hickson Pike is R1 and C2. You can see on this particular piece of property, it does abut an existing C2 zone to the south. Both these properties were annexed into the city of Chattanooga and given a permanent zone designations in 2014. Again, the closest C2 to this property is adjacent to the site at 6521 Hickson Pike, which was that little white house I showed on the pictures. So that is C2 existing or abutting this property. This is a vacant piece of property. To the north is a church. To the west is single-family detached dwellings. And then to the southwest is a single-family subdivision. And then to the south is commercial and single-family. And then to the east across Hickson Pike is vacant land. This property is located in the Hickson North River Community Plan, which was adopted in 2005. The plan recommendation for these properties were low-density residential and medium business mix. Low-density residential is typically classified as single-family detached dwellings. It does allow townhomes and patio homes if the density is compatible. And, of course, medium business mix is more of a C2, C5 office-type zones. This plan also had a goal to buffer neighborhoods from commercial areas and to concentrate a cluster commercial development as opposed to strip development. Staff looked at this request and felt the request is compatible with the adopted land use plan. It is compatible with adjacent land uses and development reform in the area. Staff felt in order to protect the adjacent single-family dwellings to the west, approving C2 with conditions, restricting some of the more restrictive uses or intense commercial uses would be appropriate. So staff recommends to approve R1 residential zone for a part of the property to serve as a buffer between that C2 and R1 to the west. Approve the C2 portion limiting uses by limiting late night entertainment, event facilities, and or nightclubs and adult-oriented establishments shall be prohibited. So staff recommends to approve R1 and C2, with C2 having conditions on this site.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. Brian, the R1 portion, is that, which section, is that behind the current C2?
It is. If you look at the map, I know it's hard to see. It's very faint. It's right through here. That's to go to R1, the R1 abutting R1 for this adjacent home to the west.
So that's a long strip.
It's a long strip.
Acting as a buffer?
As a buffer, yes.
Do you have an approximate width on that buffer?
I don't in front of me.
Okay, that's a fair question. All right, thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
And Mr. Schultz, if the applicant accepted that change, would they still buffer their C2 from the R1 strip that's between them and the R1?
Yeah, John's shaking his head, yes.
Okay. So they'd be buffering from their own property?
Yes, sometimes that's not being clear from LDO since you're buffering your own property. It depends on if that strip is sold to the adjacent property owner. But John's shaking his head, yes, I'm going with what my boss says for a couple more days. So, yes, landscape would be provided.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Martin.
Brian, is that white house that you showed us that's to the south, is that a commercial?
It's zoned commercial, but it's used as residential.
Okay. But someone could, I got you with the zoning. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we'll hear from the applicant. Come on up to the mic. State your name and address.
Chandler Hunt with Berry Engineers, address 3555 Keith Street, Cleveland, Tennessee.
And the reason for the request, and just maybe a response to the staff's recommendation.
Reason for request is to do a 10,560 square foot retail building, and we are in approval with what staff has recommended.
All right, thank you. And I think you folks were here in opposition, is that right? Come on up to the mic. Do you want to speak? I'm assuming so.
Mr. Chairman, I think I have in front of you a petition that the opposition has, and I think most of you have that in front of you.
Gotcha.
Ready?
Yeah, go ahead. State your name and address for the record.
Michael Connor, 1740. I live at second house down, third lot down from my little pictures. You've got the neighborhood. You have 35 of 42 houses or lots that we were able to get to this weekend. Then I won't bore you with the speed and traffic along Eagle Drive. You just take a ride down it. You can see all the carnage of the mailboxes. So there's ample commercial property available for sale or lease along Hickson Pike. So the majority of owners along Eagle Drive are opposed, and you can see all that in all the signatures. But from a personal note, when I go out on my back porch, I can see Miss Jean Pickles over there working in her flower garden. I see Jean and Nancy Bishop working in their fruit garden. I see Megan walking her dog. And now that what is a lot up there was supposed to be residential, it's going to be all pretty on the front, but I'm going to be looking at the north end of a southbound horse. There are going to be pallets and dumpsters, and so respectfully, we oppose it. That's all I got.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Anderson. I'm with Grand Complica Harrison. We represent Ken and Angie Chambers. And Brian, can you put a pointer where the R1 touches the house on Chippenham on, that's the Chambers property there. The primary concern for the Chambers is that the landscape buffer contain the mature vegetation that's there rather than it being stripped out and planted back, so that would allow the visibility to be obscured between what is developed on the property and the Chambers property. My clients have discussed this with Ben Berry of Berry Engineers, and there's a hackberry that they think they can save. They're going to save everything over, 5 feet? Yeah, within 5 feet of the property line, which I think would be sufficient. Obviously, more is better, but that's a concern of our clients, the Chambers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. All right, come on back up. All right. Floor is yours.
Okay. Just in response to that, for Mr. Chambers there, we are proposing to save as much vegetation, that little cutout piece within 5 feet of the property line, and also if more if available, but that's what we're proposing as well. And then also in concern to not having enough buffering in that for other residentials around this site, we are proposing to do the required buffer as well, and then also surround the development as well with a wooden fence to prevent any visibility behind the building. This site sits in a hole and it will be elevated a little bit, but with the buffering and wrapping the rear of the site with a wooden fence, we hope that, and we are pretty sure that it will help with the buffering concerns that they have as well. And the reasoning for that rezoning is that the current C2 that is there, we are wanting to kind of make it more of a continuous there at the corner there that looks to be a little bit more appropriate. That may not be the right word that I want to use there, but to try to just develop at that corner instead of having a residential with a commercial in the middle and another residential at the corner. We would like to make that a little bit more continuous commercial up to that corner.
All right, any questions? Commissioner Martin?
I've got a question and a comment. So does your plan include taking over that White House, buying that White House and making it a part of your project? The one that doesn't need to be rezoned, that house?
Correct, I believe. No.
It's not. I don't think it's part of it. No, it's not.
It's not a part of your, I know it's already zoned what you want, but you're not getting that house and making something. You're just going to build something on the property that's being rezoned, or it's being considered for rezoning, correct?
Correct.
The other thing I would say to the commission is that I've probably gotten as many calls about Eagle Drive as I have anything else, and I know it's in the city with the traffic that flows through there. Neighbors want to get speed bumps to slow down the speeders because it's really between that and Thrasher Pike are the two main ways to get from Middle Valley Road to Hickson Pike. And from what I understand, one of the reasons that speed bumps, I don't know if that's the right term, Councilman, is that the right term? Okay, brother. We don't have those in the county, and but it does, and we'll just leave it right there. But that one of the reasons for that is because of the need for emergency personnel to be able to go down Eagle Drive and not be impeded at all. And so a lot of people are speeding down this road already because it is the direct route from Hickson Pike to Middle Valley for thousands of people, really. Because if they're not taking Thrasher and they're not going by the high school, they're taking Eagle Drive. And so that is a concern to me. It makes sense that you would have a commercial on Hickson Pike, but when I think about that traffic, that's a great concern because there's not a way to slow that traffic down in that residential area on Eagle Drive.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Mr. Matthews.
It looks like on your site plan, does your entrance come off of Hickson Pike or Eagle Drive?
Hickson Pike, that's correct.
So there is no
we will not be entrancing onto Eagle Drive. We've tried to push it as far away from that intersection as possible that we could.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman.
Have you had discussions with the next door neighbor to this? I heard something about possible sale of R1 property to the neighbor. Can you elaborate on that?
So you're talking about the property that's in the rear of the site?
I am.
Okay. We are in this. We have discussed with them because they are rezoning that portion of R1. That is their property that's currently zoned R2. But we would not be. There is a portion, that little cutout portion there that's being zoned R1. I believe is being. I could be wrong on that. Let me check real quick. No, we are not. We are not selling any property to them.
Okay. So
We
looking,
are purchasing property from them, but we will not be selling them any property.
so what part, and I'm sorry, I'm not catching, I think I've asked this before. What part is R1?
So currently, where the house sits is R1, and then in front of that, on their property, and then the property
Okay.
at the corner is R2.
So the green line.
That is correct, that faint
Okay.
green line.
Now I see it. Okay.
So then there'll be a thin strip of their property that is being zoned from R2 to R1.
Okay. Second question I always ask this is, have you talked to Councilman Smith, involved him in any other conversation on this project? And that goes for opposition too. Okay. Okay. I'm going to make sure that he knows to check those voicemails. Commissioner Martin made a really good point about the traffic, and we've got speeding problems all over the city and the county. And apparently, we're building much faster cars and SUVs these days because people are pushing them to their limits. But this property, Commissioner Matthews made a good point. This property does not empty out onto Eagle Drive at all.
Correct.
So I think I'm kind of looking at that as a ongoing separate issue that the city needs to address, and therefore I would definitely encourage Councilman Smith to respond to that, because that would be something that obviously needs to be addressed. Okay, I'm good. That's the questions I had for that. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. All right, do you have any other comments?
No, I believe
Okay.
everything has been addressed. so
Thank
far.
you. All right. What's the will of the commission?
Mr. Chair, one quick comment, and I think I can make a motion to approve at some point, but we used to maybe add conditions to protect neighbors from dumpster activity and limiting that access in those hours. Is that appropriate in this case?
It's a good question. Just in terms of lighting and some of those sorts of things as well.
Well, John, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the C2, the zoning code already has restrictions on lighting. We have in the past done, not necessarily dumpster location, mainly for apartments. We locate those in the interior. We do have sometimes planning commission has recommended hours of operation. A lot of conditions are based on that sometimes. So, yes, you have.
Okay, maybe it's just something that we can consider, because this actually makes its way to City Council, if that's okay. But I'd make a motion to approve staff's recommendation, mainly just given the zoning on Hickson Pike. I feel like that's appropriate with the easement off of Hickson Pike as well.
We do have a motion, and it has been properly seconded. Did I hear that somewhere on this end? Did I hear a second? Well, ma'am, one second. Was there a second to the motion that Adam made?
I heard a second.
I think YL.
Oh, okay. Thank
Oh,
you.
there you
Wow. Okay, so we do have a motion, and it has been seconded. Any discussion, Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Chairman. To opposition, I really want you to understand that this is a recommendation, that it goes on to City Council for final approval. Councilman Smith will be very strong on that decision. So that conversation to both of you all needs to take place in the next month, and that this is a recommendation. Okay.
That meeting will be at August 10th, the City Council.
Real quick,
Thank you.
Just for the record,
Mr. Farmer.
The applicant did say they would put a fence across the back. The opposition's talked about, looking in. I don't know why. It just seems to me it might make good sense to add that as a condition, putting a privacy fence across the back
Yeah,
of the
Mr.
lot.
Farmer, I would gladly add that in as a condition. So, however we want to phrase that or add that resolution.
Got something right.
I'd probably restate
All right,
that
and
motion.
Lyle, did you hear that? You good with? Okay. All right. So we do have a motion to approve the staff recommendation, which is the initial condition that's listed number 1 in regards to late night entertainment, and then the second condition being that they install a privacy fence. Did we want to mention the
I'd like
height?
to suggest one more addition.
All right.
Leaving the vegetation in place, if that can also be a part. I mean, he said he's going to do that, but I think that would be another safeguard for the neighborhood.
Staff would also suggest, that a minimum distance be stated for codes enforcement, whether that's 5 foot, 10 foot, whatever that is.
Okay. If that's okay with these guys.
All right. So we've got and Commissioner Martin.
I just want clarity on how high of a privacy fence. When you say a privacy fence, which I think is a good idea, Mr. Farmer.
We typically do a 6 to 8 foot fence. 8 foot fence is not uncommon for us to do on this type of development that we've done as well. We also are proposing to do that up closer to the building instead of the property line, since it will be elevated some on this site. That way it provides more buffering or screening from adjacent properties instead of being lower at the property line.
And if Mr. Coker's fine with that clarity of 8 foot, then I think that makes sense.
Mr. Chairman, can staff also, we probably need to be clear where that fence is going along this property. I think he mentioned along the rear of the building, probably some kind of distance off that building. Thinking for codes enforcement, how does that fence, where does it go?
I would suggest that there's an 8-foot fence in the rear of the building.
Okay.
I mean, let's
I'll
not,
work
let's
on
not
something.
get that deep into it. Would be my suggestion.
All right. Is there anything anybody else might have to add that would make it more complicated?
Yeah.
Councilman Ludwig. All right, so we do have a motion. Just to clarify, we do have a motion. It has been seconded, and it was made with the initial condition regarding the uses listed by staff as not being allowed, and then there was the condition added that there be a privacy fence installed, and then there was also a condition added that there be some 5 feet undisturbed in one particular location. Does everybody know where that location is?
Yeah, I'm thinking, is it the chambers?
It is the Chambers property on Chillingham that adjoins the road.
It's just right there, right?
right there.
Just, okay, so somehow,
We can write that referencing
LDO.
that tax
Okay.
map and parcel number.
all right, any other discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Yes. All right, next case on the agenda is case 2021-0110, and this is located at 2512 Cowart Street. And it's an application to rezone from R3 residential zone to UGC urban general commercial zone, and has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? And you're good with the conditions? All right. Thank you. We have a motion to approve with conditions, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is case 2021-0111, and this is located at 775 East ML King Boulevard. and it's an application to rezone from URA3 Urban Residential Attached 3-story zone to UCX3 Urban Commercial Mixed Use 3-story zone, and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve. It has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is case 2021-0112, and this is located at 6102, 06, 08, and 6110 Hickson Pike and 0 Big Ridge Road, and it's an application to rezone from R1 residential zone to R3 residential zone, and has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is the applicant present? I'm assuming you have some comment on the conditions. And is there any opposition present? All right, we'll hear from Mr. Schultz first.
Sure, this is case 2021-112. Request rezone from R1 residential zone to R3. It's about 11 acres in size. Proposed use is multifamily. Proposed number of units is 180 units. That's a density of 15.4 dwelling units per acre. This is located in 6,000 block of Hickson Pike. You see on your screen here, it's in between two apartment complexes. Cassandra Smith is just to your west here, or left of the screen. This is about probably half a mile to the north of the Cassandra Smith Hickson Pike intersection. This is a view of the site looking from Hickson Pike. This is a view north of the site along Hickson Pike. You see single-family dwellings. This is a view west of the site across Hickson Pike, again, some more single-family dwellings. And this is a view south of the site. This is an older picture, but the apartments are under construction. A lot of them have been constructed, but this is south of those existing apartments. And this is another aerial view just showing you the site location of the request. Again, you do have apartments to the left of the screen and apartments to the right. This is currently zoned R1. To the north of this property is R4, R2, and C2. To the west is R2 with a PUD. You do have R4. And to the south is R3 with conditions. Further southwest, you have C2, R4, and R1. And then a little further southwest is RTZ. There's no zoning history on this particular piece of property. It's single-family dwellings, typically townhomes, and 3 and 4 families if the density is compatible. And then light business mix pretty much along Hickson Pike, which includes neighborhood commercial, C5, office, limited residential, or similar uses. The plan also has goals of consolidating curb cuts on Hickson Pike. This is not a condition, but staff recommended the applicant consider joint access to the adjacent multifamily dwellings to consolidate curb cuts and distribute loading onto Hickson Pike. There are steep slopes on this property, slopes over 25%, which I've highlighted in the reds along this ridge, which is Big Ridge. The proposal is compatible with adopted land use plan, is compatible with adjacent land uses and development form. The request would be an extension of existing zone. So staff recommends to approve with 2 conditions. Condition 1 is a 10-foot wide landscape buffer along the perimeter adjacent to R1 zones, which is actually in this case would be the northern portion. Planting shall consist of 2-inch Class 1 evergreen or deciduous trees planted approximately 25 feet, spacing on center. Existing vegetation retained can qualify equivalent screening. And finally, condition number 2, the portion of the property zoned R3 that extends east beyond a 1,200-foot depth from the Hickson Pike right-of-way shall be reserved for green space that is left undisturbed with no clearing or grading except for pedestrian trails and the removal of dead or diseased trees or invasive growth. That's coming from the site plan. If you see the site plan here, this is part of the request to go to R3. So staff is trying to put a condition on that, controlling what happens on this R3 portion in the back by limiting the disturbance in this area. This part to the right, which is the darker green, that's not part of the request, that's remaining R1. So staff recommends to approve with those 2 conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant?
One question.
All right. Commissioner Martin.
Yeah. Brian, is there an assurance that R1, that a road cannot come off Big Ridge Road into the property?
No, as you put a condition. Now, they have to have access to the R1. which is fairly steep. I'm sure engineer can answer that. That's, I assume, fairly steep to get a driveway in or access drive to that residential apartment complex.
Well, there's some old moonshine roads up there on that that go along, and I think one of the things that would be a concern would be that somehow this gets developed where there's access coming off Big Ridge Road.
There is a section in the zoning code that says, I think it depends if it says non-residential uses cannot be accessed through residential property. I don't think this would apply because this is not non-residential, and that this is being apartments.
Okay.
But we do have protections on non-residential uses.
But wouldn't the production of moonshine be a commercial use?
It depends. I mean, yeah, it's more of a commercial use now, right?
Okay. Just clarifying. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian, as of July 1, we are now utilizing our steep slope vegetation component. Does this qualify at all?
I'm going to defer to John on that because I'm not sure I know what that component is.
I'm going to guess it does. And is this the first test of it? Nope.
I'll defer to John because I don't know.
I think based on what y'all pass, I think it'll be as far as the replanting afterwards. You know, basically that code would deal with replanting after clearing. So which I'm sure the applicant will talk about what their intent for that portion of the site, but if it was to be cleared and graded, as I understand for what y'all adopted, it would have to be replanted based on that formula that you established when you adopted that ordinance.
And I believe, just to clarify, that is enforced through LDO? Is that how that's, I'm assuming that's being enforced through
Yes.
LDO?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I'll let Mr. Price probably answer that. Do you want to go ahead with your presentation, Mike, first, and then follow up on the component?
Be happy to.
I'll come back, Chairman.
Mike Price, MAP Engineers. So we do have two conditions. The first one is, the question I have is on number one. I have a clarification question of staff. In all my years, I've never seen this particular type of landscape buffer be described, because typically between R3 and R1, you have a type C buffer, and this doesn't meet type C. So if it were to pass even at city council, then that overrides the landscape ordinance. I've never seen that done before. So first of all, I had a clarification about number one.
Ryan, I think that's because what the applicant had. What you comment on that first condition?
I was going to throw it off on you, John.
We showed.
You can't get out that easy. No, let's see. Your previous condition, I think we tried to carry the conditions over from before. This is
not where we adjoin R1. R1's a type C buffer.
Yeah, which is the 10-foot.
If you go to our plan, that's what we show. We show the type C landscape buffer up in through there. So
yeah, if the Planning Commission chooses, they can just substitute that condition to the type C landscape buffer.
That's really, or even if you don't state it, it's de facto, that's a requirement. So I don't know why it needs to even be stated, since it's a requirement of zoning, truthfully.
That's correct. I mean, yeah, it's just, if you're doing something beyond the minimum.
You can do more, but you can't do less, I guess. But what's described is not a type C, it's less. I can't do less, I have to do more, or what the current rules are, basically. I think would be appropriate. Yes. And then as it relates to number two, Brian, if you would go to our site plan, we fully intended to be able to grade in that area that is left or proposed to be R3. So this condition here, we would ask to be stricken. The reason we left the back part R1 with the old moonshine stills apparently in it was to leave it in its present state. Whether there's moonshine operations or not going on, we don't know, but we're going to leave them alone either way. So what we would ask is that this be stricken, and that basically, if you want to state the R1 portion of the property that is remaining to be left undisturbed, you can put all these conditions on it. But we fully intend and need to be able to grade in that lighter green area that we're showing on the plan. Other than that, we're good with conditions as is.
Yeah, that's a good point. There would not be any conditions if that were the case.
That's what I was thinking. I was wondering who's going to catch that. There are no conditions if it's removed.
Mike, can you talk about the planning using the steep slope vegetation component, please?
So what happens, the R1 portion for certain has steep slopes that exceed 30%. Of course, that won't be impacted, so that's sort of off the table in terms of requirements. The portion that's the lighter green, as we move further up the slope, we do get some of those areas that would qualify as steep slopes. We just haven't made a full determination if it will be impacted. If it is, we are fully aware that we'll have to add additional landscaping as a result of that. But at this point, we don't think we're going to be getting into that.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Was there any opposition? All right.
I understand. The section in the light green that you need to grade, or you think you need to grade, but when you're done with your project, it will be left green or go back green. Is that correct?
It will be that size approximately, but yes, we see that either be left undisturbed or there'll be some grading that will be taking place in through there. We did a conceptual grading plan, but it's not finalized. So is it possible that the buildings move up the slope 20 feet? Sure.
But you're bound by the steep slope rule that we just passed, and so therefore it doesn't.
Correct. I would see that if we could just be, here's R3 and you're allowed to move forward with the project, and you leave the R1 in the back alone with remaining undisturbed of the portion of the property, we're good with that. I mean, we have no intent to develop or do anything.
Because you're bound by the rule. We're in one regard, we're putting a lesser buffer on with one that we already identified. And number two, you're bound by the steep slopes anyway.
Correct.
Then I move to approve with no condition.
We do have a motion to approve with no conditions, and it was properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Do you want to point that out?
I just share the part of the reason that condition. I think the applicant had requested those conditions, so I just want you to know that we didn't make that up out of thin air.
You were going to let staff fall on the sword on that? Gotcha. All right. Thank you. Next case on the agenda is 2021-0114, and it's located at 2511 Jenkins Road. And it's an application to rezone from R1 residential zone to C2 convenience commercial zone, and has a staff recommendation to deny. I think there's some opposition here for this case. All right. And is the applicant present? We have a motion to deny, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all.
That case will also go in front of City Council on August 10th at 6 o'clock.
Next case on the agenda is case 2021-0115. And this is located at 7453 East Brainerd Road, and it's an application to rezone from C2 Convenience Commercial Zone with conditions to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, and has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? All right. Is the applicant present? All right. Mr. Schultz. All right.
Okay. We got John ready. So
Yes, I'm ready. Go ahead.
Okay.
I digress. I'm bad.
This is case 2021-115, request to rezone from C2 convenience commercial zone that has conditions on it to UGC urban general commercial zone. Proposed use is mixed use and multifamily. Property is about 9 acres in size. Proposed residential component is proposed 250 units. with that being a mixture of 28 townhouses and 222 apartments, and that equals a density of 27.5. Here's the property location. This used to be the East Brainerd Elementary School. I know this is an older picture. That school is no longer there. It's 7453 East Brainerd Road, just one block to the east of intersection of East Brainerd and Gun Barrel. This is a current view of the site. You can see the school building has been removed. This is another view of the site. This is another view of the site. This is a view east of the site along Joyner Road. This is a view looking north on Joyner Road. The site's just to your bottom left of the screen. This is a view south of the site across East Brainerd Road. And this is the view of the west of the site. The site's just behind where those trees are. This is looking along Gun Barrel Road. Again, another view west of the site along Gun Barrel Road. This property is zone C2. It does have conditions on the property. There's a mixture of zones in this area. To the north is R1 and R4. Then most of the R4 is along Gun Barrel Road. To the west of the site, you do have C2 abutting Gun Barrel Road, and further west across Gun Barrel is R3 for the apartments. Then to the south is C2, R4, and O1. Then to the east of this site is C2 and R1. As I mentioned, this site was rezoned, or does have conditions on it. It was rezoned from R1 and C2 to C2 back in 2016 with 5 conditions. Condition number 1 is complete a traffic impact study to be approved by CDOT. Number 2 is limiting uses, no late night entertainment, event facility, or nightclubs. Oil change operations or similar uses were prohibited. No dumpster service between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. No outdoor amplified speakers, and lighting directed away from residential areas. It's important to note there's another UGC zone property in this area. Again, this is a vacant piece of property. It did house a school. That school is gone. To the south is commercial uses. To the west is multifamily and commercial uses. Southwest are single-family detached dwellings. To the north is office and commercial uses. Then to the east and northeast is single-family dwellings. This property is located in the Hamlin Place Community Plan, which was adopted in 2001. That plan, at the time the school was in operation, recommended institutional or public for this site. However, the precedent was set back in 2016 when this property was rezoned for a commercial or retail development with C2 with conditions. Again, this plan is more than 20 years old. This area is also going through the Area 11 plan, which is currently going through a planning process. Again, the proposal is not compatible with the currently adopted land use plan. However, City Council set the precedent to deviate from the plan goals by approving this C2 back in 2016 with conditions. So staff looked at this and recommended to approve with conditions in order to mitigate any nuisance on adjacent property. Commercial uses shall be limited to the area extending 330 feet from the right-of-way of East Brainerd Road, north parallel to Joyner Road, and building height limited to 2.5 stories or 35 feet for structures fronting north Joyner Road. And this would be on the site plan. This is just showing where that 300 feet would be. It's 300 feet from East Brainerd to about right here where this car wash is. That's where we're saying limiting the commercial uses to this general area, and then along Joyner Road, limit the height. So staff recommends to approve with 2 conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? All right, we'll hear from the applicant first. And did I see you're here in opposition? Is that right?
I think most of my opposition is probably taken care of with what I just heard.
Okay, but we probably still want to hear from you. Thank you. All right, we'll hear from the applicant first.
I'm Clint Wolford, Wolford Development. That's applicant for rezoning on this. I don't really have much I need to say myself personally. I've got Smith G, my architecture firms here. If we've got any questions or discussion that needs to go on about design, I'm happy for those guys or for Scott to speak with you all about that. If you all have questions about that, if there's any questions of me, what we're going to do, you've got it all pretty well laid out up there, what you've seen so far.
And the conditions that staff had suggested
we're fine with those.
Okay, then
Yep.
maybe we'll hear from the opposition,
Okay.
and then you'll have an opportunity to respond if that's okay.
I'm Mark Grayson. I own the property directly across the street, the car wash, and then a rental property, a vacant lot directly across the street. My serious concern is really the traffic patterns that are going on there and the potential for a traffic signal at Joyner Road and East Brainerd Road. I'm there every single day, and the number of wrecks I have seen, they're staggering. I've seen fire trucks in wrecks at that intersection. And if we're going to put all these properties in, which I'm really pretty good with, there's got to be something addressed in relationship to the traffic pattern in that area. Up and down Joyner Road is really a pretty narrow road and probably needs to be addressed with the city just to have it widened. And that's my primary concern about any type of opposition that Mr. Wolford and I have already discussed today. I'm good with everything but that traffic issue.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Grayson, thanks for coming down and talking with us. Widening of Joyner Road will be probably something CDOT's going to ask for, and I can see the nodding heads, something that we've discussed as well along the property, so you will see improvements there. I believe the traffic light will also be something that CDOT is talked about in the past. One of the concerns I had prior to coming into office was this property was zoned a wide open C2. That is not what we want. Brian, if you want to flip through back a couple slides showing the adjacent C2s, we do have a housing shortage in this city that we are dealing with, and this product not only brings in mixed use, it brings in a lower intensity of retail that faces the street. You'll notice that planning RPA has said that there's not been a UGC, and that's because we haven't been bold enough, and that's something that I had my hand on with the developer in implementing UGC for the first time in District 4. We need that. We need that interior parking. We need that mixed use. We need walkability to businesses. And I think that this is a bold design that I believe it's Smith G that came through on another project that I think they were working on that I was very excited about because it gave a variety. It gave single-family homes. It meets several criteria. But to go back to your point very seriously, CDOT will have a hand in the permitting process. Obviously, they'll issue those recommendations, and the developer has agreed to follow those. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Ledford. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman? The one thing I wanted to add real quick was that the light in 2016 was approved by a traffic study from CDOT at that time. If we need to go back and update that traffic study to get that approval again, we're fine doing that as well. I just want to make sure everybody was aware of that.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Matthews?
Yeah, and this is for the applicant. I noticed on the conditions, the building height's 2.5 story, 35 feet. On your site plan, 3 story for townhomes there. Is that a conflict that we need to remedy?
It's not a conflict for us. We just need to make the adjustment on the drawing to reflect what we're agreeing to with the staff recommendation.
So 2.5 story is good.
Yes, sir.
Rather than 3.
Yes, sir. That's fine.
Thank you.
We have a motion to approve with conditions, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 2021-0116, and this is the same property, I believe, and it's a request for a deviation from maximum building footprint requirements in the UGC Urban General Commercial Zone. It has a staff recommendation to approve. What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. And any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. Next case on the agenda is a mandatory referral, 2021-0117, and this is located at the 700 block of Central Avenue. And it has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is 2021-0118, and this is located at 8187 East Brainerd Road, and it's an application to rezone from R1 residential zone and R2 residential zone to O1 office zone and RTZ residential townhome zero lot line zone, and has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present?
Mr. Chairman, I think we did have opposition. They had to leave. They did have a letter. They would, I guess, wish to be part of the record. They have a petition.
Is it long?
It's pretty long.
You're not going to read it?
You want me to? That's fine. It's really talking about they just made aware of the proposed zoning change. It affects their quality of life, children's safety, and the value of their homes. That's pretty much what it's talking about. You know, they're not opposed to growth, but this is the first they heard of it. Just really opposed to the growth and impacts on their property values and children's safety.
All right. And who wrote that letter?
The homeowners from Kinsey Drive. Doesn't have a name. Just says the homeowners from Kinsey Drive, and they have a petition. It looks like 15 to 20 people's signatures.
Okay. All right. And is the applicant present? All right. And in regards to the conditions? Good work. All right. What's the will of the commission? Sorry. We have a motion to approve with conditions, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is case 2021-0119, and this is located at 8627 Hilltop Drive and 5217 Hunter Road. And it's an application to rezone from C2 Convenience Commercial Zone and M1 Manufacturing Zone to M1 Manufacturing Zone. Has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? And is the applicant present? I guess it doesn't really matter. We have a motion to approve. It has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is a government mandatory referral located at 1935 Southern Street, and it's for property public surplus. It has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition? We have a motion to approve. It has been properly seconded. Any discussion?
Is there a way we move these to the beginning of the agenda so the city staff doesn't have to sit here every month?
So that has come up, and I will just say that somebody's going to have to sit here through an entire meeting, and we have plenty of people that are having to pay engineers and architects and people that, don't work for the city that have to get back to work. And
I tried.
I do apologize, but if somebody's going to have to sit here, it ought to be on the government's dime and not these individual taxpayers.
Gail says she likes to come real late in the afternoon.
If I may, this maybe I know it's a quick 1 minute, but I think this project. I was going to say maybe worth y'all to note that I think there's a good community process that resulted in the disposition of this property. As far as I know, this has been part of an early conversation about this site that was going to be a big major job center. Maybe worth like just a minute just to kind of shed what this is going to mean. I think it's worth noting.
May I?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Bridger. My name is Jermaine Freeman. I am the Economic Development Officer for the City of Chattanooga in the Office of Mayor Kelly. As part of this project, the project that you, or the item that you are reviewing now, is for the City of Chattanooga to support a vocational trade school. This is the vocational trade school, in fact, that the Hamilton County Commission voted to support last week. And so this is part of the Kelly administration's efforts to support this trade school as well. It would allow us to surplus 1.9 acres of city-owned land that is adjacent to the former Mary Ann Garber Elementary School site. And we are excited about the project and look forward to it providing pipelines for people to develop skills trades that they can apply in the vocational sector and in construction trades. We have Leslie Gower here from the Association of General Contractors of East Tennessee, which is one of the organizations involved in the development of the trade school. The trade school will eventually be run by the Building and Construction Workforce Center, which is a nonprofit that was set up for this purpose. And then we also have Mr. Ken Smith, who is the Neighborhood Association President from the Avondale Neighborhood Association, who I think probably has a few things that he would like to say in support of the project, if that's okay with you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. As Jermaine stated, my name is Ken Smith. I'm the president of the Avondale Neighborhood Association. And this project, we were in discussions with the city and Jermaine's office, mayor's office. We truly support this project. It's going to be a great addition to what else is coming to Avondale. We still are having great fun with our new Avondale Center. We're anticipating the development of the Nippon plant that's coming, and this would be a great trifecta for us in that community. So I am in full support. I also have a quick letter that's in support of it from Dr. Evelina Holmes. I don't know if you want me to read it or I can submit it, whichever you prefer at the time, but we do want to welcome this project, and hopefully you'll approve it and consider it for our benefit.
Thank you. We do have a motion, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. And any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. We also have a time on the agenda for public comment on non-agenda items. Is there any? Mr. Price? Anything? Anything? Any
A quick one.
Mr. Farmer?
When
This
can we
is
go-
public comment.
I'm sorry.
Are you part of the public?
When can we go back to lunch? I mean,
I will.
That's it. The lunch was a good thing. We were all back there. I mean, when COVID's over, let's start having lunch again.
I can give a quick update what I know. Reached out to Patricia Mitchell, who's in charge of, I guess, this area. As of last month, they're still, as you see, we're still restricting the seats.
Why are we doing this?
I defer to Patricia. They're not allowing us to use the room at this point because, I guess, COVID and the restrictions. That's why we're still having to have people come in and out. We've asked about the ability to provide lunch and use that room because, number one, we have to provide training to the Planning Commission. Y'all are not getting the training required under state law. Yeah, I wasn't going to say that, but it's so that's a good one. But no, we'll reach out to her again to see, maybe it's, I don't know. Karen and I will work on that.
What? Yeah, Commissioner Martin, can you spearhead that effort for us?
Be glad to talk with the chairman about that.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the lunch.
Yeah, the county commission's had sandwiches back there.
Yeah.
So.
And are y'all doing this social distancing thing in the room? These designated seats?
There's 11 of us here.
No, I mean out there.
Yeah, but nobody pays attention to it.
Chairman, the city council chambers are open. We eat all the time.
That's obvious.
Wow.
Wow, it's getting rough today.
Says the man in that plaid jacket. All right, that's good. I like that.
Hey, haters gonna hate.
Loud and
Haters
proud,
gonna
right there,
hate.
Commissioner.
All right.
Hey, I still love America and the 4th of July.
We do have a time on the agenda as well for staff updates. Brian, I'm assuming you've got some.
I've got, me and Karen, I have something, but I'm following up on the lunch. I will follow up with maybe Mr. Martin and Patricia. And
Chip Baker.
Chip Baker, see what we can do on the lunch. Last month, we had in front of you guys the R1 amendment to the existing R1 zone. And I think there was a question that came up about how many parcels this would be impacted in terms of zoning. So I'm going back through the report. I didn't have that report with me last month. So this is 4 little slides to show you just what that meant. Total parcels in the county, there's 51,991 parcels. Of those 51,000 parcels, 17,411 parcels are zoned R1. That equals about 16,000 acres. Again, these are already zoned R1. So there's not
That are vacant.
Nope. These are already zoned. So now switch to the next slide. This is vacant R1 zone property. There's about 1,400 parcels that are zoned R1 that are vacant. That equals acres, about 5,000 acres.
Unincorporated county.
Unincorporated county, yeah. Not the city and county. This is unincorporated. So just, we have 17,000 parcels that are currently zoned R1. And then vacant parcels. These are again vacant, no structure at the time of this report. There are a little over 1,400 parcels, a little over 5,000 acres total. Just for comparison purposes, again, the same total number of parcels, 51,000. This is A1 zone property. Currently, there's 20,000 parcels that are zoned A1. That equals about 173,618 acres. That's all A1 zone property. Well, we broke that down further in vacant A1. You can see those numbers get smaller. So currently we have 3,917 parcels in the county that are A1 and vacant, or about 48,000 acres. This was just a question that came up last month. What if this amendment was passed to the existing R1? How many parcels would this be impacted? That's why we sort of brought this up today, just to show you. Wednesday, the county commission will hear that amendment as an agenda session. So we'll, I guess, know more at that point. But I just want to make you all aware, of what these parcel numbers and what's out there. That's all I have. That's all that. Karen's got something quick on the zoning code assessment. No, hit the little button.
Okay, thanks. The zoning code assessment we kicked off last summer, and we started it, and we got closer to draft, and then with the changeover in the city administration, we put it on hold for about 4 months because city council had new members coming on board, a new administration. So we have met with Cumuros, the consultant, a couple times virtually. They have asked some questions about the zoning code, just had a lot of discussion about how things are done. And they have had a rough draft that we reviewed, and we being RPA, LDO staff, and now some of the new administration partners. So they are, Cumuros, the zoning code assessment consultant firm, is finishing up and presenting a final draft. So they plan on having that at the end of July. And I think, I guess the one thing I wanted to be clear on is a lot of times we come to you with a draft plan or a draft ordinance, and we have kind of discussion, is this the way we want to head? Our approach with the zoning code assessment is we're paying a professional firm to give us advice and guidance on what they think based on what they understand of the ordinance and good planning practices and good and state law and what they've seen in other communities, what their recommendations are. So some of the things they put in there, just as we've reviewed as a draft, we've had no comment on as staff. We don't know that that's something necessarily we'd want to move on quickly, but that is a recommendation from them. So what we're getting is a technical report, and it will be in a final report form. So we can ask for clarification if needed, but unlike a plan where we might say, hey, we don't think we want to act on that right away, we're getting a report that we will take, and then we'll determine where we want to head. So this I'm glad you brought up the training because they will be coming in person. I think right now it looks like Camiros will be coming in person to review the technical report with you and then also with City Council. So we'll be setting those up, I believe, for 1st of September. But that really would be kind of a sit down. Here's what they're saying and what they're seeing and the recommendations coming out of that. So the idea then is, we will take that and determine what we're ready to do moving forward. So the city administration is interested in it, clarity of ordinances and, making sure that everything is up to date. So we will be, they're interested in seeing that also and have been participating in our discussions. So I guess the next thing we'll be sharing with you all is the report. This is what it looks like, and then setting up so we can have a discussion with Camiros. My preference was, particularly if they're willing to come, is to have that as a sit-down kind of work session. So if we're able to do that in like a lunch period, or it might be just a special kind of work group, to get our training hours in, and also because it's really interesting to hear their take on it. Brian or John can weigh in, but I think they have a really realistic approach to zoning and, are pretty common sense about it. So any questions, input, comments, suggestions?
I agree with
Councilman
Karen. I think
Ledford.
it's been a very fair report.
So, thank you, Chairman. Karen, we talk about this a lot. Last night I was with a group in my community, quite a few folks, and the assessment came up, and Ms. Hunt was with me as well. And so the next step that I need to know is once the report kind of hits the air.
Work. We all know it's pretty outdated, and we have a lot of updating to do. How we break that up, or do we tackle it all at once? That's just future discussion.
Okay.
So there is some recommendation will be coming from the report about where, in their perspective, we should, what we should do. But we have not talked about that. We don't have a plan for that yet. But I think once we see the final report and start, we have a lot of moving pieces right now with the reorganization and the new ED. I think we'll need that person, I think, to inform where we're headed also.
Okay. And I know I see Eric in the room, so I know that with his role, I think that if we could somehow strategize, maybe the term low-hanging fruit is used often, but the things that we can fix more easily, we attack and have more time to digest the larger issues. I think that action would be wise moving in that direction. That old phrase, how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time.
Well, that's what we did talk about originally, is that when we started kind of a year ago, is that we could tackle low-hanging fruit, like maybe it's the definitions or, maybe that, but in my opinion, in talking to Camiros, and, it's a lot that, probably needs to be done. And is it, what is that timeline? Do we want to get a lot done? What does that timeline look like? How would we stage that? But that was kind of